We are very pleased to have the president of the North Melbourne Football Club joining us live in the studio, Sonja Hood. Sonja, thank you so much for your time and coming in.
Thanks for asking me.
It's been a big couple of weeks.
It has a bit, hasn't it?
So talk to us about the review findings and the presentation to the board, which has happened in the last couple of days. And can you give us any insight into what that looks like for the North Melbourne fans and how it's presented?
So Jeff presented to our board meeting on Wednesday night. I think that's known. I've got the written report. I haven't actually had a chance to look at it yet. It's really fresh. We'll digest those findings and work out what they mean within our footy department and come back to supporters and members after that.
Was there anything in it that was confronting or that you weren't expecting?
Probably not really. There's actually quite a lot of stuff in it that's positive, so that's really great to read. And there are some things that confirmed my view of what's going on. But as I say, I haven't delved into it in depth yet, and I'll do that.
Let us behind the closed doors for a sec. How does the night go? So obviously you gather the board there and everyone's got their particular role or function to play in that. Does Jeff just come in and just step through what brackets? How was it presented?
Well, in terms of how the night played, I'll start you a little bit before Jeff because we're still finishing our renovations at Arden Street, so there's no boardroom at the moment. So we're meeting in a tiny room and one of our board members is overseas and everybody listening to this will be familiar with by now, I think, with the phenomena of trying to run a meeting with half the people in the room and a couple on the screen. So we needed to get through all of that first. So there's a little bit of additional detail for you and insight. But no, Jeff comes in and he sat down and just talked us through high level what he'd done, what the aims were, where the limitations were, and in general what his observations were.
So how did he break it down? Did he go via department or and just say this is working, this is failing? Is it as cut and dry as that?
No, he broke it down by area and by sets of observations and gave us some recommendations at the end less around what isn't working, more around things that he thought we probably needed to look at or work on.
So how many recommendations were there?
Don't know.
A ballpark figure?
15.
So now we turn our attention to who's going to coach the club. And Clarkson, you've been asked about and you have expressed, I guess, an interest. I think is fair enough and you'd be negligent not to. Have you spoken to him personally, you?
No.
When do you plan on doing that?
I don't know at this stage. So I genuinely, we talked about that at the board meeting on Wednesday night. We're working through the process of making sure we've got the right people around the table. We've had our previous two coaches haven't lasted terribly long, have they? So it's incumbent on us, I think, to be really clear on what's happened there and really clear for us on what we want moving forward. Is
there a panel that will select the coach or?
There will be, but that's part of what we're discussing now. So we'll get all of those things right in the coming weeks.
Have you got a thought on how much money you can pay a coach? I mean, we're hearing 1.6 million for Clarkson or whatever it is, and you take that with a grain of salt. But how you can fit everyone into the soft cap, because you need help not just with the coach, you need help with recruiting. No doubt you need help with fitness and all the other areas that are associated with running a football team. What's your philosophy on how much you can pay a coach?
My philosophy is that I've got a CEO and a head of finance and a head of footy to work those things out. And my philosophy as the president is we can't spend any more money than we can afford.
Yeah.
So, but it's their job to work out that detail.
So what about the recruiting situation as well? The three recruiters that have departed, when will you be replacing those?
Again, that's a decision for the football department, but it will need to happen. And I think there's some pieces in Jeff's work that pick up on that for us that'll give us some guidance as to how we go about that.
And the follow-up to that is you've been positive about the list. I disagree with you. I don't think you have a really great list. And my criticism around that would be that you can't have a great list and then apply to the AFL for a priority pick. Can you respond to that and do you back away from those comments?
First of all North people should take great comfort in the fact that I'm not the list manager. I think we'd all agree. We'd all agree on that. Secondly, two things. I hadn't done a press conference before. I'm hoping I never have to do another one. But if in the context of that the criticism I cop is for overstating the state of our list, I'll wear that. I had the playing group sitting there. They'd found out that morning that their coach was departing. It was a pretty emotional environment, and I was going to cop criticism no matter what answer I gave to that question. So I'd probably rather talk them up than talk them down.
So, yeah, I understand that, and they're sitting right in front of you, so it's an intimidating position to be in. I want to get back to the report. So that report has gone to how many departments now? How many people would be acting on those 15 recommendations?
At the moment, nobody else has seen it. So it's come to board verbally. We've received a written copy of it, but it hasn't gone any further than that. And it will, but we need to digest what we're looking at first.
So, personally, I think if you've had that, I can't. Either you're telling us you haven't read it, or you haven't read it. They're two different things sometimes. Who would be reading that now, though, and acting upon it? Is that Ben Amarfio's role now to address some of those?
Ben Amarfio, Dan McPherson as GM of footy, absolutely. Reading it and working and acting on it. And I suspect what we'll ask for as a board, I don't want to presuppose what my board will do, but as a board, what we'll ask them for is a response to it and to tell us what order they're going to act on things and what that will look like.
So a lot was made of the pointed question about you supporting Ben for the next 12 months and potentially beyond that, which you unequivocally said, yep, he's our man. He's been given this report. He's there now to act upon that. So you would assume outside looking in that has been still signed off on. You're comfortable to make those decisions?
In terms of...
Ben's your man going forward, absolutely?
Yep, absolutely.
Irrespective of whether coaches that are being asked say, I would like to bring my own people in?
We're in a tricky position, aren't we, if a coach is coming into a club bringing in the CEO.
Or won't come in under that CEO?
No one's told me that directly yet. So there's a lot of stuff floating around. Let's see let's see what I hear directly.
Okay.
With the coach, how many would be on your shortlist? Like you're gonna have to act soon. Like you're telling me you haven't spoken to Clarkson yet. I think you should. I think you should speak to him pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I'll take that on board.
Spoken to James.
Is there 3 or 4? Is there 12? Like I'm just fascinated on how you go about appointing because it's the biggest decision you're going to make.
Yeah, it is. Well, actually, arguably the biggest decision I was going to make, I made 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so,
but you can't stuff the next one up.
No, I can't. You're absolutely right. So do we have a number on the shortlist? I'm probably not going to share that with you. Am I going to tell you who's on the panel? We haven't completely decided that yet, so I'm not going to share that with you. We'll make the right decision rather than the fast decision.
What are you going to share with us?
Yeah.
Can you tell us the panel, is the panel made up of some experience that have done this sort of thing before?
Yeah, so we'll be looking on our panel for people who've done this sort of thing before and people who are in the industry now. And again, we'll look at making sure we've got the composition of that right.
So time's precious. When will we know all this?
As I said before, we're looking at making the right decision, not the fast decision.
No, but would it be, are we a week away from it, or are we 3 weeks away? I mean, we've got 5 weeks to go. The advantage of moving on, David Noble, is that you have the luxury of being ahead of other teams that may make the same decision, they may not.
100%.
So
but
would you not utilise that time?
Yeah, but if I do it too fast and get it wrong again, you'll all come at me for that, won't you?
Yes.
We will be looking to make, as I said, the right decision.
Where do you see the future success? Like a time frame on when North Melbourne can be competing for finals? Do you have in your mind how long this is going to take? Like,
I think we're a couple of years away.
So only 2 years from finals, or
no, maybe 3.
Okay.
Yep. And it depends on the development of that list. It depends on, obviously, who we bring in as coach. There is, whether you like it or not, there's talent on that list. Is there enough of it? No. Has it been playing to its potential? No. Does it need time to develop? Absolutely.
Has Gillon McLachlan given you any advice on who he thinks should coach North Melbourne next year?
No, he absolutely hasn't. But he's been very supportive. So I should say that. So
take us through the priority pick presentation to the AFL and how that was received by them.
I wasn't part of it, and it would have been inappropriate for me to be part of it.
Have they told you how it went?
The feeling in the club was that it was very positively received, and my understanding from the AFL is that there's some positivity.
Was it, let us in on that presentation a little, was it asking for multiple picks over multiple years or just a one-off?
I actually can't tell you.
Okay. You're not telling me a lot today. You're not even telling me you're not telling me. How's it been for you? I mean, you've been in the role for 4 months.
Yeah,
4 months. It's been a hectic 4 months.
Bit going on.
It's been a time. I say to people that it's a bit like if I got to, instead of doing a degree, I got to do the intensive immersion long weekend version of a course. That's how I feel. I feel like we've done all of the highlights in fast succession. So I don't know, how many other presidents can people name 4 months in, unless you're Jeff Kennett? I wasn't anticipating having certainly this degree of media or profile or having to make some of the decisions I've made. Doesn't mean I've resiled from them, and it doesn't mean I can't make them, but I certainly wasn't expecting it.
All right, we'll finish on a positive. Your heart rate for the win, I mean, and the feeling.
She's carried on a bit.
The feeling in the room.
Carried on a bit.
I didn't I? Like the proverbial pork chop. That was me. I was more of a side of pork rather than just the pork chop.
What did it feel like?
I felt fantastic. I think for every one of those, I mean, for starters, the week before we'd given up a lead and not come back. So we'd had that disappointment the week before of not. But I reacquainted myself with a whole set of feelings during that game that I'd forgotten existed, like footy anxiety and joy and despair and all those emotions that you have during a game that frankly you don't get when when the game's decided at half time. So those things were wonderful. But for standing in the race with those players who've really worked so hard and had a really tough year, and they're under a lot of pressure too. It was just joyful.
Did you reach out to Nobes after? Have you spoken to him since that week?
I've had a message exchange with him since. Okay. Yeah.
Sonja, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for coming in.
We appreciate it. We did our best to ask you the tough questions.
We're going to get you back in when you can actually tell us a few things, if that's all right.
You'll be my first point of call.
Of course we will.